Hi guys, my name is Tamara Fernandez from The Independent Lawyer. I'm here with my partner Ryan Bullock.
Hey guys.
We're in a beautiful place in Los Destiladeros. This is a place between Pedací and Playa Venao. We took advantage of the weekend as we have a closing in Las Tablas on Friday.
Yeah, actually we came over for the closing. It was at the notary's office in Las Tablas, which is like an hour and a half from here. But since it fell on a Friday, we packed up the whole family, nannies, the whole crew, and came out to spend the weekend.
So we're taking advantage of this amazing weekend to do a little video about how our real estate transactions work in Panama. I think one of the first things is the listing. Tell us from your perspective, what do you think about the listing?
Sure. I guess the first point to note is that Panama doesn't have a multi-listing service, an MLS, like you find in other markets, United States.
Well. We've been doing big efforts to implement one, but not all the realtors, and we have many realtors in Panama, don't use it. So it's not being adopted like it should be to create really the sense of the market and give us a lot of information of it.
Okay, that's true. A good, important asterisk. There is an MLS project in Panama that they've been trying to implement for a few years. But yeah, it's really only as valuable as it's consistently used.
Yes.
What you don't have yet in Panama is one place where you can go and see all of the most recent transaction data, reliable data points. So your due diligence is a little bit more difficult, at least the commercial due diligence in that regard. What we do have are websites, platforms like Encuentra 24, Compre o Alquile, that are basically like Craigslists.
Yeah.
In a way, people can go on. They're not just selling properties; they're selling vehicles, PlayStations, furniture, all kinds of used goods.
Yes, but I think if you are new to Panama, it's better to go with a broker than specialize in the area than you want, or somebody that can give you like a panoramic view of the entire city or country even.
100% agree. And in fact, like Tamara said, there are a lot of brokers in Panama, but the ones that are sort of the most active and that we would generally recommend that you start with are ones that are really focused on a particular area. I'll give you an example. You go to Casco Viejo, is one of the hottest real estate markets in the city. There are a couple of brokerage shops that are like living, breathing Casco Viejo day in and day out. Arco Properties, Inmobiliaria San Felipe. These guys know the neighborhood, every corner, nook, and cranny of the neighborhood, and can give you the best lay of the land. You go to Pedací, we do a lot of work with Panama Sovereign Realty. Actually, the closing that we just had on Friday was for a property in an area called Cambutal, which is here in Los Santos, and the broker there, a guy named Andres Padron, we're actually involved in several different transactions in Cambutal, and Andres appears multiple times because he's like the guy in Cambutal.
Yeah. So yeah, I think going with a broker that knows the area and can give you overview of the places that are hot in Panama, it's always a good start point. There are other companies like relocation tours that can give you overview in a bunch of areas.
Yeah, actually a lot of people are coming to us now through the relocation tours. There are several that have really grown quite a bit since the last couple of years. And a lot of people are coming in and discovering Panama that way. As a matter of fact, if I were coming to Panama for the first time, I think it wouldn't be a bad way to go.
Yeah,
I would probably consider it.
Totally.
Yeah. So, Tamara, the listing, fine. What comes next? How do we start the negotiation in a real estate transaction?
Well, once we have target property and we dream of, the next step will be doing an offer. And an offer, can be anything could be something very formal, could be a chat, could be a conversation, and basically an offer will just include the price and how do you want to purchase the property.
Yeah, actually, if you're working with a broker, a lot of the brokers now have their template or model, so they can help you to put together your offer if you want to do something formal, like Tamara said.
Yes. If you are doing a written offer, please engage with a lawyer so they can review it before you send it and it's being accepted.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, look, what happens a lot of times is you make an offer with the commercial terms, and maybe you have an idea of how you want to structure the deal, but then once you start talking to an attorney, you start thinking about other ways to structure the transaction that might be more tax efficient. And anything you've put in that initial offer, if you contradict that, then you're sort of backtracking on terms.
Yeah, totally. You start negotiating with yourself.
Yeah, so, okay, let's say you've made an offer on a real estate property in Panama. The offer has been accepted. What's happening next?
The seller's lawyer should start drafting the promise to purchase contract, and the buyer's lawyer should start working on the due diligence. Ideally, the due diligence will happen before signing the promissory purchase contract. And in the promissory purchase contract will be all the colorful terms. How do you want to buy? In cash, with finance, if you need to issue a promissory payment letter because there is an existing mortgage, or with a cashier check by the end.
Yeah, this promissory or promise to purchase contract is really where, in my mind, most of the negotiation takes place, right? Because the price was already established in the offer, but now we're talking about things like, okay, what's the payment schedule? What financial instrument are you going to use to pay?
How long you need for the purchase?
Yeah, if there's been anything discovered in the due diligence, or if you're still in your due diligence process, and you might want to allow for what happens, certain contingencies that may have been identified. What's going to happen if one of the parties breaches, or is in default of the agreement? So this is where there's a lot of back and forth between the parties, their attorneys. I think most important is when you sign the promise to purchase contract is when you pay your down payment, which in Panama is usually 10%.
Yes, but this is negotiable. Everything is negotiable in Panama.
Yeah, totally. As a matter of fact, if you're buying from a developer, a lot of times the developer will allow you to separate a unit from the market with some nominal amount, a couple $1,000s as a reservation deposit. Okay, so the parties have signed a promise to purchase agreement. The buyer has kept up with the payment schedules. Now, how, Tamara, does the property title actually transfer from the seller to the buyer?
Well, that will be the closing in a real estate transaction. Basically, the seller will send all the paperwork needed to create the deed. The lawyer's buyer will create the deed and will take it to the notary. Usually we sign at the notary, and once it's closed, we take it to the public registry to be inscribed. All the title properties will be inscribed in the public registry. So that will be a public information.
Yeah, that's an important thing to understand about a real estate deal in Panama. The role of the public registry, which is a government institution. It's where all land titles are reflected and all such real estate transactions are recorded. This is why, well, first, the promise to purchase contract that we mentioned a few minutes ago, it's an entirely private agreement. Chances are the only ones that will ever see that agreement are the buyer, the seller, their attorneys, and a bank if there happens to be a bank involved. The final contract, like Tamara said, is a deed, or more specifically, a public deed. It's a very specific, formal, dry document that just basically says, this person is the seller, this person is the buyer, this is the price that was paid, and the title is now transferring from one person to another. And that title transfer actually occurs when the public deed has been inscribed in the public registry and appears as a matter of public record.
Yeah, that was what brought us here to Las Tablas on Friday, because our buyer were paying the last payment with a cashier check. That check will be in deposit in escrow with the notary until the deed is inscribed into his name. So in that way, even though the seller already signed the deed, transferring the title, he is secured in his money. It's with a custody agent, that in this case is the notary, and the buyer is secure that the money won't be released until the property is in his name.
Yeah, a lot of times people will not pay, instead of paying with a cashier's check or a certified check, they'll pay with an irrevocable payment letter from a bank. If you pay that way, the notary or custody agent really isn't necessary, because that irrevocable payment letter from the bank is going to have very specific instructions that say this money will be dispersed to the seller in the moment that he presents evidence that the title has been transferred in public registry to the buyer.
Depending how the deal is structured, you can pay with a cashier check, with a promissory payment letter from the bank, but both have to be from a Panamanian bank. Usually, we don't accept foreign checks.
Cool. Yeah, so there's a lot more to talk about, especially when it comes to how to structure your real estate transaction. If you're buying the property directly, if the property sits in a corporation like an SA or a foundation, more we can tell you about due diligence. I think that's a wrap for this video, though. If you are interested in purchasing real estate in Panama, at what moment you engage an attorney is sort of up to you. But from our opinion, the earlier the better, right? Because ideally, have another pair of eyes look at that offer letter, start the due diligence process, so you can ideally have that done by the time you pay that 10% and sign the promise to purchase agreement.
Yes, totally. So thank you so much for your time. And now Ryan and I will enjoy the weekend.
Bye.
Bye.